till we enter the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Post Livecast. It's August 17th, 2018, and this is episode 15, Star Wars Resistance trailer debut. Tonight, we'll discuss this awesome new animation series for the saga, Star Wars news of the week, and much, much more. We got plenty to get through this week, so let's meet this week's panel. He's the editor-in-chief of RebelsReport.com, our good friend Pete.
Howdy.
Hey, Pete. And joining us from the beautiful Emerald Isle of Ireland, he's our writer and a content creator for blobofthehut.com, Gary O'Toole.
Good morning.
Hey, Gary. Good morning. That's right. And he's a writer and our good friend Magnus. Magnus, it's good to have you on the show again as well.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, guys. Sorry for yesterday for everybody. For canceling last night, guys. Unfortunately, I had a mixer at work, but it worked out because of the big news today. So we're glad to be on live tonight. Liz is out on vacation, gallivanting across Europe. Good for her. Right? I hope she's having a good time. I think she'll be back for next week's show. We can't wait to have her on. Okay, guys, so just to get some housekeeping out of the way before we get into stuff, the Star Wars Post Livecast is now also a podcast on iTunes, so please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. It helps us out. Got a couple emails last couple of weeks from people and some reviews, so it's been nice to see that. Also, don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up on this channel on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and of course at the Star Wars Post. We want to hear from you, so if you have a question or comment, send it to livecast at starwarspost.com, and we just might answer it on the show. So as soon as emails start pouring in regularly, I'll have a new segment for the show where we'll get to answer everybody's stuff, which would be really, really, really nice. I can't wait to get to that someday. Okay, guys. So today was a big, big day in the news, and we'll cover that in the main topic section of the show. Meantime, we just had a couple stories that came out that were relevant in this last 2 weeks that we missed one. The big one, of course, is MakingStarWars.net. Jason Ward, our good friend over there, had a really good scoop last week when I was busy out on vacation on the Keys. About Favreau's new live-action series, and it's going to be about Mandalore. And that's where he leased with his scoop, and his sources are saying that it's going to be forces around there. So Jason wrote, sources believe that Jon Favreau's Star Wars live-action series, which is set around 3 years after the Return of the Jedi, is about the planet Mandalore. It sounds like when the Empire falls, Mandalore falls into a state of turmoil, and the series is about restoring Mandalore to its former self, and how Mandalore sways will have huge galactic ramifications. So Jason sort of let, this has been floating out there for a while. Good thing I wasn't here last week, so I didn't have to hear Pete gloat on the show.
Yes.
But I'm going to let him do that now because he's been waiting years. Pete, how do you feel about this? What are your expectations? And please educate me and everyone else on how the Clone Wars might fit into this, the new episodes for Clone Wars, and how all this makes sense and how it makes you so happy.
Well, I'm trying to tamp down expectations in case the rumor turns out to not be entirely accurate, because I'm pretty much excited through the roof right now. We have a ton of stuff from Legends. We also have a bunch of stuff from the Clone Wars that really dealt with Mandalore. And the canon stuff right now is mostly just the Clone Wars.
Sure.
And we have different factions. We know that when we meet the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars, they've decided they're going to go a different route and become a peaceful people. And yet there are still factions, which we see on the show as Death Watch, which want to bring back the traditional warrior ways of the people. And throughout the series, that sort of ebbs and flows as Darth Maul comes into the picture, and Pre Vizsla takes power, and then Maul takes power, and we get the Maul commandos that develop. And the series was one of the final arcs of the Clone Wars was going to be on Mandalore, where Ahsoka travels to Mandalore, joins up with Bo-Katan, and they, with the help of the Republic clone troopers, they actually take back the planet from Maul and his forces. And so it looks like we're actually going to get that in the new episodes that are going to debut on the streaming service. We're actually going to get that story arc eventually coming out. And so that's going to be pretty cool. We don't know what the status quo on the planet is going to be from there, except for the fact that the Republic turns into the Empire and there's an occupying force on Mandalore. There is sort of up in the air just how much Jango Fett was Mandalorian. and what the derivative of Boba Fett and whether he's going to be any relation to that in the canon now, because Lucas was sort of I don't know if he was just trolling people because he was tired of how much hype Boba Fett got, or if that's how he actually felt, but was saying that Jango Fett isn't really a Mandalorian. We do have a hint of that in the Clone Wars, where one of the governors on the planet actually says that Jango Fett was just a bounty hunter. So we'll see where that goes. But what has me geeked out is if they bring up any of the stuff from Legends. Karen Travis wrote the Republic Commando series, and that was one of the major sort of depictions of Mandalore that tried to marry up some of the older comic book stuff and some of the older book stuff about the planet. And she brought in some of the Maori cultural stuff and combined it with what we had pre-existing. And it was a strong honor culture that focused on adopting people. So family was more than a blood. It was, if you want to stick to a certain set of values, then you're welcome to be one of us, but we hold you to certain expectations.
Well, that makes things easier for the long run, right? I mean,
yeah. And so and like, there's all kinds of stuff. And I know we talk a lot about diversity and stuff, but if you have Mandalorians that look like Sabine Wren and her family, and we saw in Rebels Mandalorians that are black, and we have Mandalorians that could be Maori, you have a lot of different cultures and different groups you could pull from to cast a show, which would be pretty exciting.
It represents Earth, right? We have different cultures and races on Earth, and it would be the same thing on Mandalore. That just makes sense.
And if they went to the story that some of the clones consider themselves Mandalorians based on Jango, then you could have Tamara Morrison come back and play an old clone that's like on the show, which would be a really cool thing.
It's funny sitting here on the live cast is seeing how happy Pete is. You know what I mean? So you're doing a podcast, you wouldn't see this. Pete is just on cloud nine. That's great, and that's what I want to see from Star Wars.
And the other thing that gets me is if like they go a little more mature with it, and not with the swearing and the nudity, but like more of a Game of Thrones sort of like struggle for power on the planet vibe, where you have different basically clans of armor-clad Mandalorians fighting it out, trying to seize power. That really gets my juices flowing. So
well, that's great. But and just to follow up on the story, to add to the story, was the fact there was a great tweet today from oh my goodness.
It was Favreau, Jon Favreau.
It was Jon Favreau's tweet out that he hung out all day today at the ranch with, and that's the one I can't remember.
Dave
Filoni. Now that's a great way to spend an afternoon, right? If you're Jon Favreau and you want to understand the culture of Star Wars, you want to understand what to do if it is Mandalorians, ain't nobody better. You know what I mean? To really get this thing going. So that was a great tweet. I mean, after a great day of news, this was a real just a topping on the cake that just made everything fantastic. I'm excited about it, only because it's funny, because I think Pete and I went back and forth on Twitter because I had his shit on his parade at least a little bit, because there was no pulling him out of the clouds, unless I did that. And it's one thing, I love it. I love when Star Wars will come out with something that hits a niche for certain people, and they can revel in it and they want it. And even if I might not necessarily find it crazy, I live off the hype and the happiness from everybody else. Right, and the thing, like I told you, my biggest worry is going to be that I might enjoy it, like Mandalorians, right? Because so far at this point, they just haven't grabbed my attention. Mag, what did you think about the news when you heard about it, that this might be Mandalorians, and from top to bottom?
Like you, I have no affinity for Mandalore or Mandalorians, but I do have an affinity for great storytelling. Yeah, and so I think that someone like Favreau. Favreau, whatever. He is passionate about something, and whatever he's passionate about so far, from what I've seen from him, he makes pretty good art. Yeah, and so I'm excited about that. I'm also wondering if the Filoni thing, if the reason that Filoni is doing just one season of Clone Wars and has apparently abandoned this other show that I'm using extreme words here, but has been moved off, is perhaps because he's going to be he's moving to live action. Yeah, and maybe doing more on that show than has been told to us. And I'm just wondering if that's because he's already done with Clone Wars. I mean, obviously there's going to be more work to do, but they've already recorded every episode. Yeah. So he may be moving on to the next step, which could be as a co-showrunner or one of the executive producers on that show. we'll see. One of the lead writers, he might be one of the main writers in the writer's room for future seasons. That may be the step to get Filoni into live action film down the line, is to first get him involved in that, or is he working on another show entirely, another live action show? We don't even know what's happening.
When the live action news broke out, we always talked about one of the greatest things about it was going to be a sandbox for a lot of directors and writers to try their hand at Star Wars. It's like the minor leagues. And that's, I would, of course, Filoni should do an episode directing or writing, or both, for that series. Gary, what did you think about the news about Mandalore when you heard about it?
I think the most exciting thing for me is that it's going to take away this whole misconception that the minute you hear Mandalorian, you'll automatically think of Bounty Hunter, and that's pretty much it. We know that there's been some phenomenal stuff regards EU and Legends, and I think that's something that is a huge market to potentially tap into. But I mean, if we talk about the supposed rumours regards Favreau series, supposedly a budget of $100 million for the 10 episodes. Exactly. Favreau is a safe bet when it comes to working with large budgets. I mean, his blockbuster movies have done extremely well at the box office, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't carry over into expanding our minds and broadening our horizons regards looking into whether it's a potential siege of Mandalore or a full-on Mandalorian war, which is what I would personally be hoping for, factions of Mandalore versus Mandalore. So I think it could go a number of different ways, but I've no doubt that Favreau will throw in a lot of surprises along the way.
Sure. Yeah, it was also reported that 10 episodes, $100 million, was actually a piece from the New York Times, which was interesting to get that bit of information from, which is a healthy amount of money to spend. Right, I think everyone did some conclusions about comparisons to Game
huge.
of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's almost 3 times as much as a normal episode of television. So 2 to 3 times more. So yeah, it's around the money that Game of Thrones is spending now, or even like a season or 2 ago. Not what Game of Thrones was spending in season 1. They were not spending $10 million per episode in season 1. So it's big money. They're putting a lot of effort behind this. They have a lot of faith in this. And I think that's what's really encouraging is that, Disney is putting money behind this. They are not abandoning it. I mean, there was the other thing that they talked about on that call the other day to their, what am I trying to say?
The quarterly conference call?
Shareholders. Thank you. The shareholders call. The fact that they didn't write off Han Solo is another, it means that Disney has a lot of confidence in Star Wars. The fact that they're putting this kind of money into a TV show, they're not considering Han Solo a write-off. Those are indicators that Disney is not afraid right now. They are going to.
Why should they be? Yeah, why should they be?
But the talk is.
Oh yeah.
They're intimidated. It's like it reminds me of the PT talk when people were saying they're going to avoid the prequels. That was never a thing. People just invented it. It's just like this. Oh, they're now afraid. They're canceling Kenobi. They're canceling the Mos Eisley movie or whatever it was going to be called because of what happened with Solo. Those moves were made before Solo tanked at the box office, if you want to call it a tank, which obviously it made, $400 million or whatever total. But those things were happening before that happened. So I think that what we have to take away from that, the fact that New York Times is reporting 100 million or 10 million per episode average, that's a really good sign. That means that not only was Disney impressed with whatever the pilot episode that they would have presented to them, but they were they were impressed by the entire presentation of the 10 episode arc, and they must think that this is going to be huge, and this is going to be like the flagship of their streaming service. And
it's a good investment. You can spend the money because you're going to get it back. Do you guys think this is going to be filmed in LA? Are we thinking this is going to be filmed overseas, or do you think Favreau is going to do this in country? And that's what I kind of wonder. I mean, the good thing
I think it'd be stateside.
The first thing that came across my mind that when Favreau was doing this series, and then reading and hearing about the Mandalorians, and we heard about it for a while. The thing for me was going to be that it's a lot like Iron Man. Right? If you're doing a lot of guys in CG in suits, Favreau knows how to do that. And they know how to do it well. Right? For all the Marvel movies and everything else. And that to me kind of feels right. Like if you wanted Favreau doing that kind of heavy CG for live action, it's got to be a faster turnaround than doing a film. Would he be the perfect guy to do that? Yeah. So I really wonder if this is going to be filmed here in the States. That's the one key thing I'm interested in hearing.
It makes more sense to me because I know there possibly would be production windows in Pinewood, but Pinewood is going to be pretty booked up with either pre-production or production on the films. Sure. And Favreau did the Jungle Book, and I believe he filmed that just about entirely on stages in LA, because it was pretty much all CGI they did indoors.
I mean, didn't they also do filming in Georgia as well, for the Avengers movie? So I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of this stuff is going to be in town, literally in house in the United States and not overseas, which would be interesting. It's nice to spread out. I mean, you can't have all these projects all sitting in Pinewood. That's just not realistic. But the thoughts of all this stuff in terms of leaks and everything else being in here is going to be a heck of a lot more than it would be in England. Okay, guys, so that was a really good one on Mandalore. I'm excited about it. The more we hear about it is a good thing. Jason, of course, got the scoop. Congrats for MSW on that one. Hopefully we hear more soon. My guess is probably going to be Celebration. I really doubt we'll get anything before then. But it was a great tweet to see from Favreau today with Filoni. I think
we're going to get an episode at Celebration, because they should have one episode ready, and I think they're going to show, or at least they're going to show 10 minutes of it. I think they're going to shock people and show them something big at Celebration, and that would be something huge. People think there's just going to be, a 45-minute talk, and what if they go, you know what, a trailer would be nice, but you know what, we're going to do more than a trailer, and they show even if they show 5 minutes.
See, I'm not sleeping on concrete, man. All right? Do not tease me, because I'm not sleeping on concrete this time around. And I don't want to be kicking myself for not doing that. Oh, my, if that happens, I will be so pissed.
It would be amazing. It would make big news. The only reason they might not do it is because they're definitely going to show a full trailer.
Well, that's what makes convention special. When you really have something that's special to offer. I mean, that's really what makes them special. Okay, guys, so the second news this week, which really wasn't much, but it was congratulations to Timothy Zahn and the crew at Del Rey Publishing for Thrawn Alliances, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I'm halfway through the book after sitting in a rotten airport at Fort Lauderdale this weekend. I'll be finishing it up hopefully in the next couple days. Next week, I'm hoping to have Gary back and Pete, and we're going to go through that book, Something Awful, right? Because so far it's not that great for me, but I'm sure it'll get better. What else for Zahn? There's some great things in there, especially about Batu and some of the characters, so I can't wait to finish up the book. And congratulations to the team at Del Rey. It takes a team to make a book. It's not just a writer, right? And it was great to see that at #1. It's nice to see that for Star Wars. It's nice to know that there's a lot of Thrawn fans out there that will send a book to #1 on the first week. Not many Star Wars books go to first week, #1 on the first week. It's usually #3, #2 or so. This one's straight out the box. And summer period, usually people are traveling, so it's a good time to do it, but really happy for everybody involved. Okay, guys. So the big news today, and I kind of had a hint something was coming soon. So I start off the day on Twitter complaining to Lucasfilm, because I notice if I do something, if I criticize Lucasfilm very loudly on Twitter, they'll send out something within 15, 20 minutes to make me look like an idiot. So today it worked out great. I complained. Jason Ward from MSW gave me a great heads up saying, yeah, you might want to delete that, which we knew a trailer was coming. We knew the marketing team was coming, because the big news last night that Jason had scooped out, and Florian before him, was that the premiere for Star Wars Resistance, the new animation series that's going to debut on Disney Channel, actually was going to be released on October 7th, Sunday. That leaves only 3 weeks, right? The marketing chain for this thing really needs to get going. For an example, I was looking at DuckTales, new series that was posting on Disney that literally started its marketing campaign in March when it debuted in August. It really is a lot of leeway time to get people knowing, get kids ready for it. But we got it today. And, of course, which accompanied the trailer, which was debuted. We all got to see it around 11 o'clock this morning, right, which is great. Trailer didn't grab me so much, but we're going to do round robin across from it. But I'm going to go ahead and read the press release for it, because there's a lot of information here that was given that's, of course, outside of the official story from StarWars.com and some of the sources. The trades didn't even get this. The trades is back. I would really thought EW would probably get it and maybe accompany the release for it, but nothing. This one was really just, here's a trailer, and almost looks like a TV spot more than a trailer. That's how it felt to me. But okay, so the press release, Star Wars Resistance, a new animated series that takes place prior to the events of The Force Awakens. Takes flight with our 1-hour premiere Sunday, October 7th at 10 p.m. Eastern on Disney Channel, Disney Now, and Disney VOD, with subsequent airings on Disney XD. So let's just take that first part. Sunday at 10 o'clock at night. Pete, what do you think?
That's pretty late for school night.
And it is a school night, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it seems it's an interesting strategy, unless they are expecting parents to watch it and then watch the rerun with their kids. I don't know why you'd put it that late into the evening, if it's a younger skewed show.
Yeah,
is it possible they're dropping in during late night TV because the traffic will potentially be already there? Regards if it's talk shows or frontrunners.
Parents aren't going to the Disney Channel 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday. I mean, for me, like, of course, we'll talk about a ton of questions that we have about it. But for me, it really comes down to the target audience. Now, I know the debut night could always be weird and a little late, whatever. But Pete's right. If you're going to do Sunday night and it's something you want to do with the kids, parents and kids to kind of get them ready for it, it would be at 8 o'clock. It wouldn't be at 10 o'clock. I mean, 10 o'clock is late, right? Unless we're in for some super adult animation that we didn't expect, which is not going to be the case with this one, right? It is kind of awkward in a sense. Like, oh, okay. I mean, I can understand, maybe a weeknight at 9, but a Sunday at 10, that's a bit okay. I mean, I'll take it. I'm not gonna, not take it. But all right, here's the second part of it. So I think the second part of this press release talks about the actual episode, the first episode, and Florian from Jedi Bibliotech came out with the first scoop on this, which I think is still more detailed than what the official press release has. But the press release does have a couple sentences in it that Florian didn't have. So, okay, the High Flying Adventure series follows Kazuda Ziono, which is Kaz, that's going to be our new hero, a young pilot recruited by the Resistance for a top-secret mission to spy on the growing threat of the First Order. Following its U.S. debut, Star Wars Resistance will roll out globally on Disney channels worldwide. In the one-hour premiere titled The Recruit, Poe and BB-8 assign a new appointed spy, Kaz, to Colossus, a massive aircraft refueling platform on the Outer Rim water planet, home to colorful new aliens, droids, and creatures. While undercover, Kaz works as a mechanic and lives with Poe's old friend Yeager, a veteran pilot who operates a starship repair shop run by his crew, Tam, Niku, and their old battered astromech droid, Bucket. I like Bucket. That's a great name for a droid. But I think Pete had a problem with the way it looked today. I think Pete had a problem.
I just don't like the helmet on the top of the droid.
A helmet on a droid. I know it's kind of redundant, right? Like, why would you do that? So far, I mean, let's see here. So Kaz soon finds himself in over his head with his newfound friend BB-8 as he'll have to compete in dangerous sky races, keep his mission a secret from his newfound family, and avoid the danger of the First Order. So at least that's part one. I'll get into some of this other stuff here in a bit. But that's first episode. Sounds kind of kiddie. Lays the groundwork, right? Introduces everybody. He has something simple to do, like win a race. Gets the kind of motor flowing. What'd you think, Meg?
I'm not the guy who watches a lot of animation, but I've, of course, watched all of Star Wars stuff. And so I didn't have a huge expectation for this thing. And yet, as soon as I saw the art, it's interesting to me, some of the reactions to it that I read online, because I absolutely adore this style, the star that they're using. It reminds me of Titan AE a little bit. And the feel of it reminds me of Robotech Season 1. And so you combine those two things, I don't see how I'll dislike it unless the stories are bad. I saw some of the humor in there and all that. I don't have a problem with it. I don't look at these things and think of them like that they are kiddie events or anything like that. Because I think that when I watch Clone Wars, I don't watch Clone Wars and think like, oh, this is for adults. Like, I watch Clone Wars and I think this is for 8-year-olds to 13-year-olds. Like, you can enjoy it as an adult, but it's not for adults. And I think that's what this is going to be. This is only a trailer. It reminds me a lot of, like, Pixar trailers for movies that are way darker than the trailer is. And I think that people are just expecting. I think maybe some of the reaction that we're seeing right now is that people expected this to be a kid's show, and then the trailer or the teaser shows them it's a kid's show. And so they're reacting as if, like, this isn't made for me. I think it's going to be way cooler than you think it's going to be. And I actually think the art that they're using, the fact that it's going to cost them less render time, means they can do way cooler things. And so where they would have had to shortcut it like a dogfight in Rebels, they won't have to do that here. They'll be able to do more intricate dogfights and maybe even cooler camera shots that they couldn't do because they didn't have the render time to do it. They'll be able to do that with here. So I'm excited for that. If they, however, skimp out on that, utilizing this type of art, I'll be disappointed in that because they have a huge opportunity to do unique things. I also expect that episode 1 will be the one that they put the most effort in for rendering. So there'll be more elements in the first episode, maybe the first 2, and then they'll do what they do in all these shows. They'll start to cut it back. But right now, the kid character, the lead character, can seem a little bit annoying, but you put any kid in a teaser trailer, they're going to seem annoying.
Sure.
So wait to see how the character develops. I did not like Ezra at all for like that first season.
People have problems with that. Gary, what did you think about your initial thoughts on the trailer and this first episode?
Tonality-wise, I was surprised. I was expecting it to be maybe a bit darker. I don't know why I had that sort of thought, but I did. I like the actual animation aspect, even though I was expecting something closer to maybe something like a Voltron or Dragon Ball Z, sure. Sort of a classic anime look. But I think the one thing that excited me was that we got to see a lot of stuff that appears, at least on the face of things, to be quite new to us. Kaz seemed to be wearing 2 distinct, unique uniforms, same as Poe. So that is maybe leading me to believe that there is another specialized squadron aside from Black Squadron, which I think would be pretty cool to see different squadrons running alongside each other. But the different ships was quite nice as well. It makes me think that if we are seeing new types of aircraft, that it will change up scenery from outer atmosphere dogfights to more inner atmosphere dogfights, similar to what we got in Rogue One when they breached the energy shield. So I think that would be quite a nice contrast regards the animation style. And as we said, they are going to be able to do something much cooler when there's much less rendering time to follow along with. And the big draw is quite possibly the voiceover actors. I mean, we know Oscar Isaac is there, Gwendolyn is there. I think, is Lupita involved if we're going to be seeing Maz potential?
So let's see here on the press release. The voice cast includes Christopher Sean from Days of Our Lives as Kazuto Zono, Susie McGrath for EastEnders as Tam Rivora, Scott Lawrence from Legion as Jarek Yeager, Myrna Velasco from Elena Vavalor as Tora Doza, Josh Brenner from Silicon Valley as Niku Vozo, and of course my favorite, Donald Faison from Scrubs as Hype Faison, which I love. He just basically kept his name. Jim Rash from Community, and Bobby Moynihan from DuckTales as Flix and Orca, respectively. Oscar Isaac, of course, from Star Wars The Last Jedi as Poe Dameron, and Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones as Captain Phasma, and Rachel Butera from Tammy's Tiny Tea Time as General Leia Organa. Is great. That was that last bit for Leia was fantastic to hear about that.
And I think if you look at the last 3 names, those are going to be more of guest stars, and the ones before that are going to be the main cast. So I don't think you're going to see Isaac, Christie in like a ton of episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they probably already did their stuff already for it, and it's probably not much. I'm hyped about Donald Faison. I'm a huge fan of Scrubs, and he's a huge fan of Star Wars. And I already said, like, I tweeted out to Zach Braff today, I'm like, you have to do a cameo on this show. And I want to hear you guys do Eagle. Like, I want to see that. Like, that has to be edited somewhere.
He was really good in the Robot Chicken Star Wars stuff, too, because he did some voice stuff in that, so he's a lot of fun.
I'm stoked. Because if you guys remember from the last episode of Rebels, he was in the cast. He was invited to Lucasfilm to come and watch, and he was at the back of the thing, and he asked a question directly to Filoni during the Q&A after the final episode, like, is there going to be another show coming soon with Ahsoka and Sabine? So it was great to see him there. Like, I didn't realize he was that big of a fan. So, Pete, what did you think about it? Your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts, I really love the animation style for environments and objects.
Sure.
I like it for some of the human characters and some of the aliens. I don't like it for a few of the aliens. It it doesn't look defined enough, especially for the Nikto alien.
Sure. Yeah,
the green guy.
I kind of agree with that. I agree with that.
But like the big orange brute alien, I think he looks pretty good actually.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. I remember you tweeted earlier. Mm-hmm.
So, and some of the shots I thought were really, really cool. I like the fact that it looks like they're going to take the ship racing and sort of try to recapture the excitement that a lot of people from the prequel generation had around pod racing. And they're going to try to have that as an element of the show.
Do we think it's going to be an element of the show, or do we think this is just a one-off episode thing?
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that they dropped that in Han's new backstory. They dropped it in Claudia Gray's novel Bloodline. Sure. I think they're seeding this ship racing on planet idea as something that's going to be a large part of the sort of recreation in the galaxy. So I think that was all with an eye towards doing something like this, where they're actually going to show it more. And it's interesting if we have ships that, like, as the guys were saying, that they are using as sort of like race ships, but also could be like fighters in space or fighters in atmosphere. Will be kind of interesting to see. I'm really curious to see where they take the story. He's going to be a spy, but we know they can't really have a hot war between the First Order and the Resistance at this point. So what are going to be the sort of the villain of the week or the conflict of the week that he's going to have to face? Is it just going to be like one bad guy? He's got to figure out if the guy's good or bad, or if he's like working with the bad guys. And I'm curious if they're going to go off planet a lot.
Sure. I think,
yeah.
It kind of like, it feels like, so this is going to be the Quidditch version for Star Wars, right? This is going to be their sport that everyone gets into. And don't get me wrong, everyone knows, like, I'm an aspiring pilot. I got my hours half in, right? And it was just fun. I'm a sucker for yellow fighters, and I'm going to post it again for picture, from back when. For me, this fits everything right. The animation style, I was worried when the initial shots came out. I like this. I'm not crazy about it, but I like it. So I'm willing to give it time, because I guess I'm spoiled with what Filoni has done and how pretty. I like pretty. I like real pretty. But the thing is, for me, I'm willing to give up. But I'm willing to give up a little pretty for budget, right? And the good thing is this animation really wasn't my strong suit, so I spent a lot of time this past couple weeks really talking with people to try to understand it, right? And this is it took me a while to get it, thanks to Jared and Star Wars Twitter and some of the other guys out there to kind of help explain it for me. But this really is just a 3D drawn, but 2D with cell shading. It's 3D drawn as 2D, but with cell shading. So my first thought, as being an engineer, is server render farms are not really going to have to pour out or work overtime to get this stuff in, which saves money, and which gives the artist time to draw more stuff quickly and makes more scenes dense. Add a lot more elements to make the thing kind of rounded. I think the casting, I'm never worried about casting. Never. Lucasfilm just has a damn great talent of really finding great people for their roles. And, from what I'm reading right at the top, even though I don't know most of the voice actors that are going to be doing this work, I trust it completely. So I think the biggest thing for me in story, of course, and I have great faith. Lucasfilm does a great job with storytelling. They just do. But, it's funny. I think this might have a lot more to do with Pablo. I forgot where I read this morning that Pablo Hidalgo has a pretty good hand in this, the show, working with Filoni. So, Pablo is a great fan of Robotech, as I am, as other people are in Lucasfilm. I'm a huge fan of Robotech. And this is what it reminds me of. And to me, it tickles me pink, because it's great. It's got all these tiny little elements. And, I love Kaz is our new hero. His spaceship, or his aircraft, looks a lot like an F-4U-4 Corsair from World War II. Those great gull wings that just look beautiful as anything. So I have high hopes. I am kind of curious. To me, it's like the simple questions are, who's the target audience this time? Like, has Lucasfilm really dropped a hammer? We're aiming for, 8 to 10-year-olds, or we're aiming for 13 to 17-year-olds. My guess is probably the latter. I mean, it's going to be probably 8 to 10, or somewhere around there. Hopefully it's at a weeknight. I'm really hoping this thing's not like the Saturday morning, because I think if it is Saturday morning, there's a lot of part of the older fandom that might not watch it. Because some of the
can I just interject?
Sure.
Because you guys were actually talking about this earlier. Sure. I wonder if, because we know that this is not a Lucasfilm strategy, this is a Disney strategy of when to put these episodes out. I wonder if this has something to do with ad money, and whether they have seen that they make more ad money on shows like this via their app than via putting it on their channel, because actually the impressions you get via online ads is greater money per minute than you get on television. Although the trade-off is huge because you get more viewers on television. So I wonder if there's something to do with that, because why else would they do this? Like, it doesn't even make any sense to put it out at 10 o'clock for an hour episode, right? So that means that the kid has to stay up to 11 on a school night. Like, there's no way. They have to be to drive people to the app. That's the only, they must have some sort of algorithm somewhere telling them that this is the way to do it. Because why else would they do this? It seems like financial suicide to do it this way.
So you're thinking there's a bunch of kids sitting around with their mom and dad's iPad on a couch watching their shows?
They must have some sort of data that says that for Rebels, they had a lot of kids watching it on the iPad the next day.
I could buy that. I could buy that. I don't see. Yeah. I think traditional. Even my kids, we don't watch the Disney Channel. We watch the app from the Apple TV. We watch it when it's almost like a DVR. We watch it when we want to watch it. And maybe they're kind of splitting hairs here. If we have it at night, we'll get the adults because this is the time they're awake, and then the kids will catch it on the streaming service whenever that comes out.
And could that be that they are basically trying to condition a audience to watch their streaming service next year? So that this is what they're trying to do. They're starting a process by which they condition their audience to watch things on an app, so that then when they get the service, they're like, yeah, I'll buy into it, because they're going to start to remove all those shows from the Disney XD app or the Disney app, and it's all going to go to the pay app, and you will not be able to get anything for free.
I can buy that. That's a great.
That would make sense.
That's a great way of making money on both ends. It really is.
You think there could be a case? You think it could be a case for, if it's going to be on reasonably late, that there is the off chance that adults will check it out first to make sure it is, I suppose, appropriate, or depending on what age group that they have? It could
be, but why would they care? Like I'm saying, like, why would Disney? They would want you to get suckered into watching a show without the parents looking at it first. So I don't think that that's their financial strategy. I think there's a different financial strategy. I think there's a conditioning strategy going on right now.
And like on XD, Rebels ratings were really low, really low. So I'm not sure they had that many people watching it live generally anyways on the network. And then they did run it on reruns quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if the streaming, what he's saying is really true about the streaming, and that being the primary viewership model.
I wouldn't mind. I would. To me, I'm a sucker for data, and I don't have it. Right. I would love to know like how Rebels did on streaming. For streaming downloads instead of doing for the regular air dates, and how
they don't have to. They don't have to release that because they are a public company.
I don't know.
That's weird.
Usually
it's probably somewhere. It's probably somewhere hidden in some document somewhere.
There are sites that, because they do release the network ratings for
Nielsen and all.
But like they do it kind of selectively, and like if you go back and look for Rebels after the first season, it's really hard to get consistent ratings data, and it's basically
because they don't have to release it. Yeah,
well, they have it.
Nielsen has they keep the ratings, but they don't have to make it public, and so they make that choice, but. The data can still get out there. Like they're definitely but it's just like no one's reporting it because it's so low. They figure no one cares. So that's got to be. There's probably somewhere out there someone who keeps that data and posts it on a forum, and we just haven't looked for it.
So I guess the second question for me is, besides now that we know the hardware of it, they're going to save money on rendering. This is a totally new style of animation for Lucasfilm. Good cast, solid story we can feel confident on. The main part for me is going to be now is, and this goes back to a feature that I wrote for the post not too long ago, is how much information are we really going to get about the First Order and its rise? We get through the novels and through some of the comics, we start to get tiny pieces of this era about Leia and the Resistance finding out about Snoke, or at least trying to find out about who this hidden enemy is. Right? We got that from Bloodline, was probably the best one that we have right now, that Leia knows something is up. There was an assassination attempt, and there's this big money from the underworld going places to this some place out there, and that the New Republic is starting to fracture. There's starting to be a huge line of divide between systems that are not like in the New Republic, that they did better under the Empire because, of course, of corruption and everything else, that they like the way things used to be. And so you get this natural thing. So I'm almost kind of hoping that some of the politics of this start to come out. Like we start to see people in the Senate. We start to understand what's going on. I know, and this is where the demographic kind of doesn't jive right. I mean, like Clone Wars did a great job of that, just kind of framing, just on the outside of the box, how is this going to happen? And for me, it's not about individual senators. I'm not expecting like a Padme Amidala kind of person walking down the halls or Leia trying to do it. But for me, it's more understanding of we recognize this new threat and now start from, I'm hoping, because all of this trailer and everything is all been the heroes. We haven't seen the bad guys yet, right? And who those main characters are going to be. And it'd be interesting who they put up first because you get their point of view too, right? And this, I'm like, who's going to be Mike Callis in this new series, right? What's his goals? Where are they at? What are they trying to accomplish? Phasma seems to be the one on that side, but Gwendolyn's not going to be voicing every episode. So it's like, who is going to be our new, antagonist? Even in the press report, they don't mention any of the bad guys. There's nobody on there. You know what I mean? We've only gotten one side of it so far. So, and I think I wonder if they're holding that to their chest too for a little bit. It seems
I think they will roll that out as part of the marketing campaign, like if you remember how they did with Rebels. Yeah. But we did have that one sort of leaked, grainy kind of German press conference image that had the red-clad stormtrooper pilot that might be Cardinal, might not, depending on where they go with that.
We just don't know it.
And the question is that character going to be... Like, is that character going to be one of the racers? Is he going to be like sort of in a similar dual role where he's in like First Order costume sometime and racer costume the rest of the time? And
I don't know if this is all going to be about racers though. I'm trying to read through the press report, trying to see if it is or it isn't, and I just can't imagine. Like I hope the main premise of this show, I think, has to be it's a spy show.
Well, yes, but I think what they're gonna like. This is just me spitballing out of thin air. But I think they're going to use the races like as a race circuit basically to travel the outer rim to go to different planets. And while they're on race missions, he's going to be doing the spy missions as the part of the story, and that's going to be their sort of A plot and B plot.
See, that works, but I tend to think this might be more to the 8 and 10-year-olds, right? Which is fine for me. The way I approach this show, guys, is one, I have to watch it for the site. I have to report to it, but I get to watch something with my kids. And to me, that is always the plus, right? And if they can enjoy, if it's a little bit younger for them, that's my corner that I want. And I got it. So I'm really happy to have it.
And wasn't A New Hope really geared towards 8 and 10-year-old boys at the time?
Well, everything in Star Wars is.
So it's like, we still love it. And I think that they have to think about that future. But I also think that, I actually think that Piet has a really good point about this, which is if you're going to create a show about, these spies, the best way to do that is, we did this during World War II, where we would have like famous people who would go out and they would go, do their tours, like their famous Hollywood tours. And yet what they were really doing was spying on people. So if you have famous racers and they're going like, I think this one famous racer that's racing against me is working for this new First Order that we're hearing about.
Sure.
And so that's how you build a show. And so you can have races, one episode, then you can have a big mission that follows that race or something like that. So there's a lot of things you could do with that. And I think that it's a good way to inject politics into an 8-year-old's mind without doing it heavy-handed. You don't have to do it like, you just have one line and then that's it. Exactly. You move on.
And that's kind of what I'm hoping for, because I'm a sucker for Cold War era films and storylines, right, in Berlin. Like that kind of thing. Now, this one might travel, but there's nothing, to me, sexier and better in storytelling than spies trying to find out that something big is coming and trying to unravel that over time. And that's a wealth of storytelling that you can do, because you get defectors, you get big money involved, you get people who you think you can trust and then you can't trust them anymore. And so to me, it's having a Cold War in Star Wars rocks. And that's some of the best stuff with the prequels, is the stuff that what was Cypher Diaz doing, right? It's that mystery of how did these pieces come together? That's what makes the prequels really great. So these kind of story elements that when it comes to spying, I'm adoring with it, right? And especially even the Phasma novel, which it gets, again, it's a small part of this era where Leia sends out V. Moradi, a spy for the Resistance, and she has her nice, super fast spy aircraft that's trying to find where the First Order, the fleets are and report to them and everything. And they have this great job about her getting caught. And I hope she shows up in this series because, of course, she's talking to Cardinal, right? She's turning him over. Cardinal would be an interesting bad guy in this. I don't think he's probably not going to be in the show, but if he is, it would be great because Cardinal's a good guy. As a person, he's a good person. When you read him in the novels, he doesn't seem like a brainwashed, first, and even though he trains the First Order, he's very much an honorable soldier. I mean, he's a lot like Callus, but not nearly as mean, at least in the novel. And of course, the novel won't translate into the story, I'm sure, one for one. There'll be differences. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. And the fact that it's coming in 3 weeks, now I'm kind of happy with the marketing. I don't have to sit there and hear about this since March and worry about it. It'll be here before I know it. You know what I mean? There's no waiting for it.
Not 3 weeks.
Yeah.
7 weeks.
No, it's coming up in October. I'm sorry. That's right. Oh, wow. So I'm thinking it was September already. My kids are starting school already, right? My youngest started school straight. It hasn't been 3 weeks. That's right. It's been 7 weeks.
Vacation brain.
Yeah, but even 7 weeks is still really short for this thing to be rolling out.
Yeah.
I just thought I was really sort of expecting to be more hoopla around the trailer and the trailer to be a little bit more cinematic. And usually the Rebels trailers tend to be a big thing when they come out.
It doesn't look to me like Filoni's guy cut the trailer. This looks like Disney had like one of their trailer shops cut it up.
Yeah, because Filoni does a great trailer teaser for half of a season. It's very cinematic. It really pulls at you. We go crazy over screenshots. Yeah. This felt
it makes his show actually look good. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Kidding. I'm kidding. I like Rebels.
No, but the crazy thing is, I think we appreciate them more. We break it apart for weeks. We really try to figure things out, and it's very cinematic. I don't know if it's because of the animation style maybe this time, but this felt like a TV spot. It didn't feel like a cinematic trailer. And even the Lucasfilm logo, the way it just blopped in and blopped out so fast, it just felt different. I think everyone kind of felt the same way. I think if it was more cinematic, of course, there were those in Star Wars Twitter that hated it. People said it wasn't for me. And this is an age-old argument. And I say it to people 1,000 times, especially when we go through Rebels, that there's a good part here and a bad part. The good part is Star Wars has always been for children that adults can enjoy. So you can't expect that label thing. But at the same token, there is a hunger for a more adultish animation for Star Wars. And there's no reason why they can't produce that later or soon, depending how things go. There's a market for both. There is. I don't know if Lucasfilm generally worries that if they did something a little bit older, that they're worried that 8 and 10-year-olds will want to watch it too, and the parents will be put into a sort of a bind. I mean, but we're going to get that with the live action series, right? An 8 and 10-year-old's going to want to watch the live action series. So it's, I think Clone Wars, I think, struck that perfect balance of just enough depth and that kids can understand and enjoy. Maybe we'll get that with this one. I don't know. I mean,
but they also got to grow with a young character that you were focused on, and then they grew with the audience. So I think that's the big difference is that every time we talk about Clone Wars, which was, great storytelling, and they put so much effort into it, I think that everything else is going to pale in comparison. I don't think we're ever going to get Clone Wars again unless this app, this service that they're putting out next year makes them big money and they go, oh, this is worth investing in a bigger show. But I think whatever happens with Clone Wars next year will determine whether we ever get another Clone Wars.
I think that ship has sailed. So, I really think that ship has sailed.
I don't think any ship will ever sail until, if they make money on it, they will put money into it. That's how it works. But if it doesn't, then we're going to get nothing but, resistance shows from now on.
Go ahead, babe.
I think the thing is, if you look at the sort of animation model for TV that Disney pursues with like content like Marvel, it's like shorter series runs, like only a couple seasons usually, and then they move on to the next thing. They've done 5 or 6 different Spider-Man series in recent years.
Sure. And
so they have a show, they put it on for a little while, then they do the next thing. And I don't know if they would go for the long haul of something like the Clone Wars and do 5, 6, 7 seasons of a show again in the future. And I would be kind of surprised they went back and did more episodes of the Clone Wars, because it sounds like the way they're going to finish up with the episodes is going to get really close to Revenge of the Sith. I could see them bringing back, a lot of the crew and stuff and doing a new series that is similar in tone. Like Max is saying, I'd love to see a more mature animation show, because I think that the thing with animation is you can have shows that skew younger and shows that skew older. The best content, though, is the stuff that's like Pixar, where you get storytelling that works at both levels simultaneously, and you're gonna get the same value out of it. It might get different. You might be focused on different things, but you're both getting a high value out of the show. And there's some shows that are just you're not getting the same amount of value out of it. And if Star Wars storytelling can stay to that level, I think it doesn't matter what the target audience is, because both will be able to appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Holy Grail. And the thing is, folks at Lucasfilm, they learn from mistakes too. And during the transition from Lucasfilm to Disney, right? This stuff you learn as you go. And I know someone's out there. I mean, it's not hard. Everyone knows that there's a hunger for more adultist animation versus for Star Wars. And that's coming. They know it's a moneymaker. And they got to fill the content for the streaming service. So it's just a matter of, I don't think the Clone Wars is going to live on past these, 10 episodes? Or 6 episodes? They got to have a season. That's it. They didn't even get a full season. They got half a season. And honestly, I really am. The past has to die. We've lived in this era for way too long. We know it already. It's great that it's being capped off. I'm going to enjoy it. But it's like we need to move on to the Resistance era if we plan on staying here for a while, and then transitioning over to, eventually what Rian Johnson's going to come out with. And the good thing, I think, for this week for me is putting together all these different pins are starting to line up for me. When you start looking at Batuu being mentioned in the 2 new novels that just recently came out, trademarks for Batuu and Black Spire Outpost. I forgot what it was called again. Long Spire or Black Spire Outpost. These things are starting to coalesce. I think we're starting to see the transition between Resistance era and now whatever Rian Johnson might be going. And I have a feeling Batuu might be this linchpin in between. We'll talk about that in future episodes of the show soon, because I think it's important. And it's going to be this nice segue between the unknown regions in this new world and what we've known here. I'm glad the Clone Wars is capping off. Animation show, and I think, and then again, with Rebels, Thrawn is out there in the unknown regions now, right now with Ezra. And we know Sabine's looking. I think all these things start to coalesce between Batuu for Rian Johnson, probably. Definitely for episode 9. It's in the novels now in 2 different eras, the prequel era and also in the original trilogy era with Thrawn alliances. And now we're seeing this with Ezra 2 with Rebels. We're starting to get this coalition that I think is starting to happen, because Rian Johnson really can't start from someplace completely brand new that has there's got to be something that ties both areas together. And that's what the Outer Rims and the unknown regions for. It's that borderline. I mean, literally, it's a physical barrier between the two. And I think for animation, I'm really curious to put a roadmap up to see what they can do. Because if you finish off Clone Wars, what is Filoni working on now? Is he really going to be working on the live action, or is he going to start working on another animation series?
I think we would be crazy if we aren't going to get a Luke Skywalker animation project of either show or movie at some point here. There's no way they're going to get rid of decades of his life and not tell that story. And the only way to do it is animation, because you're not going to be able. You're going to either have to recast a young actor to play Luke. I don't think they would do that. Well, I think that's an animation project.
Sebastian Stan.
Hey, Mark needs a job, right? He's working, but he could use a full-time gig. He's got full experience in this medium, more than most. I mean, how lucky is Lucasfilm that their star, and still he is still the #1 star of Star Wars, has such a breadth of experience working in animation and talented at it, award-winning at it. So it's kind of like, are you really going to let that go? Hell no, you're not going to let that go. And I think really Mark Hamill is dying to do it. He would love to have Luke have a much richer, deeper lore in the saga. And he knows if it's never going to happen in the films, I think Mark Hamill would jump at the chance to do it in animation. And I always talked about, Pete and I have been sweating it for years, that we would love to see, after Return of the Jedi, Luke gallivanting across the galaxy, hunting out, looking for artifacts, being with Ben and with his troop and that whole deal, right? It's like that. I think would be a marvelous animation show that can get really deep, really heavy, and people would just be dying for it. And it's crazy for them not to do it. I mean, it would be nuts. But, we'll see. I think things are lining up right. Filoni is done pretty much with Clone Wars. He's not touching, as we found out again, as just kind of a thing that he's not going to be working on Resistance, except as, the chief boss. How are things going? Is everything on schedule? So then what is Filoni working on? And Resistance has already had a year. From what I read today, they started on this last September. That's a long time. That's a year. That's the reason why these things are done. So what is he working on now? And, I think we may find out, honestly, for me, the most obvious answer is Sabine and Ahsoka. I mean, they left that sucker right there, and they're ready to go with that. They already have all the models and animation stuff they need. They just need to just get going. You know what I mean? So, who knows? We'll see.
I would love to see an animated Knights of Ren.
Oh, yeah, those guys got to come back somehow.
I think that would be class.
Have them in as just the bad guys that are always trying to get away and to just show up. And it just ties in also to Resistance with the toys. And looking at Resistance today, I love the kind of formula because my kids, I know when they get older and enjoy the show, there's 5 different pilots wearing 5 different outfits. If they have their own aircraft that are all different, right? If this is a race sort of thing. So you can see a lot more toys, a lot more difference of toys. They're not just all stormtroopers and not just 1 or 2, Kylo's ship or anything else. I think this has the opportunity of really offering a lot more toys to the kids too if they really enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we mentioned him earlier, Florian, who's kind of the book catalog wizard.
Guru.
And he's saying he hasn't seen any evidence that there's going to be any tie-in books released with the series in October.
Yeah, I read that tweet from him this morning.
And I couldn't find any either. So I'm like, if they're not doing that, we haven't had any whisper of Hasbro doing any stuff for it. Like, what is the support for this show going to be in terms of the merchandise?
Yeah, some of this stuff to me is just, this stuff scares me a little bit. And I don't get scared easily. You know what I mean? But some of this stuff just doesn't jive right. Florian put that there's no accompanying books that's going to come with this new animation series. That's really odd. They always do that. There's always something in the pipeline, even if it's a kiddie book. It could be a darn alphabet book. But if this thing's coming out in October, you got 2 months before Christmas, right? There's usually something. And I'm talking about I'm talking about like bed sheets. I'm talking like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a book for it, and if Hasbro doesn't have anything, it's like, wait a minute, you guys have been doing this show for a year. How did this not, you know what I mean? How does this this is simple stuff. This is ABC stuff. What if there's no merch on the shelves at Christmas for this, and there's not like some accompanying books? I'm just hoping that it's just because they were late with the marketing with this, that stuff will follow soon, right? Otherwise, I'm like, what is going on? That's crazy. That's really nuts. I doubt that stuff. I would really be surprised.
I think that would line up perfectly with an app.
Yeah, and I think
similar to like Galaxy of Heroes or Force Arena.
Yeah, it's usually a game too.
Yeah, something with a game or something like that. Yeah. It's really weird, especially because usually when something like this happens, it's often that they're burning a show. Like they're just going to make as much money. They don't have confidence in it. But I have a lot of doubt that that's what they're doing. So I just can't see Disney burning. I think they would have just canceled the show. I think they're way more sensitive right now after what happened with Solo, of putting something out there that they think won't be met with success on some level. And so I think that's why whatever they're doing, they're trying some weird strategy right now. I don't know what that is, unless they have something bigger in mind that's going to come out not long after the show is released. I mean, it would be weird they did that. That's the only thing I can think of, is that they have something much bigger planned around that time, and that they don't want to put so much focus on this because there's a bigger thing coming. Because it doesn't really make much sense why they wouldn't put way more effort into this.
Well,
right?
That's what we all have been discussing for the last few months. That we all kind of had our preconception that this is going to be more for the kiddie side, but there was something big coming. And then we heard about Clone Wars. And I'm like, okay, then that's probably the big thing that we've been waiting that was coming. But that's only a few episodes. That's only half a season. So it's like, this one just seems, Rebels was more grand in their rollout. This was a big deal. It's more, here it is. This is getting to be like, hey, it's just a new show on Saturday morning. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. And to me, it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Something here is just not jiving right. But they know what they're doing. And we just have to wait and find out. That's really what it comes down to. But
yeah, maybe they're testing to see if they don't have to promote anything like Solo, if it'll still make them money. I don't know. I mean, what?
That's dangerous. That's a dangerous. I think that's the big. If there's ever one lesson from Solo, the number one lesson was I don't care if you're Star Wars, you still have to market your product. and you got to get it out there, and you got to get people to get off their asses and go buy it or go see it. And you learn that. That's a hard lesson. I mean, people in marketing and everyone from Wall Street all the way on down, they all blame the marketing. And I think they're right on that. I think it was a lot of things for Solo. It definitely wasn't the movie, right? And we'll see that. I can't wait when this thing comes out in home video and streaming services and see how well it does, because it's going to do well. And there's going to be a lot of people pissed that they didn't see it in the theater. There's going to be a lot of people pissed that they didn't see it in the theater. And it's going to bring up this really big question like, wow, why didn't this do well? And I think that argument's going to come back. And, you know, I don't like pissing on Lucasfilm. I don't. I really, truly don't. But when I do these, you know, when I'm on Twitter and when I do features and stuff like that, I'm trying to get people's attention that, you know, hey, you do have to market these things. You have to spend the money up front. Either you feel confident it's going to work or you don't. And if it's not, and if you don't, then don't do it. Because you can't do it half-assed. If you do it half-assed, it's going to fail. You're literally priming yourself to failure. Because it's not going to be one of those things that is a sleeper hit and it just grows on its own. That doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? Especially like Mag made a good point. If people are not watching TV when things are airing live, because that's just not the way things are done anymore, then you really have to put the marketing to get people to see your thing on streaming media, to get them to go pick it, choose it, and get the app. And, you know, I don't know. And we'll see. But I was really tizzy today because I want to see the marketing do its job. I want to see my kids see the plastered sights. I mean, DuckTales is a perfect example. They completely blasted the airwaves for months before that sucker came out. And my kids they've never heard of DuckTales. Of course, I'm dying to see it because, you know, things, and I could see it with them because I enjoyed it when I was a kid. But with them, it's like they were hyped up on their own. Like, this looks fun. This looks funny. Yeah. And, you know, even the Mickey Mouse show that's on the Disney, and I live on the Disney app a lot because I have toddlers, right? And I'm sorry, to this day, the best animation show on TV, and I like Voltron, I like everything, is really that Mickey Mouse drawn in this same style, pretty much close to it. That is the funniest darn thing you'll ever watch in your whole. It is adultish. I can't explain it, but it's classic cartoons that we grew up with. There's violence with Mickey and Goofy and everybody, and it's very fast and it's funny as hell. It really is. My kids get a kick out of it, and so do I, because it's done in the old way. It's like Tom and Jerry violent, like that kind of violent. You know, it's great, and it's like, yeah, you know, I mean, the Disney app works. I enjoy it with DuckTales and the Mickey Mouse thing, and I can't wait to do this with my kids too, and it'll be interesting. And the second thing I would like to see them do, and I know people say it'll never happen, but we got a year before the streaming service comes out. I think Lucasfilm should put Rebels on Netflix. I mean, the Clone Wars is really special as it is, and a lot of people watch it, including me, because they found it on Netflix. And I did a round robin in my office this week asking people, did they catch the Clone Wars the same way? They all did too, through Netflix. Having Rebels, all the seasons available on Netflix for this 1 year before the streaming service, I think is the damn smart thing to do. Because people like watching animation shows on Netflix. When it pops up, they'll watch it. And I think Rebels can get really popular. I think that was one of the biggest mistakes, that they didn't put it on Netflix instead of Disney. They could have had it on Disney XD Live, but it could have been on Netflix too. And Rebels would have been huge. I have no doubt of that. It would have been much bigger than it is today. Why they didn't do it, you know, who knows? That's not my field. All right, guys, I think we pretty much got through everything this week. You guys got anything more to add? Nothing yet. Okay, so Mag and Gary, where can people find you guys at on Twitter?
They can't.
They can't. Really? Sure they can. What's your handle?
Oh, Geek Furious on Twitter.
Very good. You too, Gary?
You can find me at Plo_cool.
And of course, you too, Pete.
On everything.
The Pete Awakens until I get an episode 9 title and decide whether I'm going to change my name.
That's a good thing.
The Legend of Skywalker. That's the name of the movie. Oh, no.
No kidding, right? Okay, guys, this has been a fabulous time this night. And of course, you guys can follow me at Max Palace and, of course, at the Star Wars Post on Twitter. And please don't forget to visit us at StarWarsPost.com for all your news and fun stuff and me complaining. All right, guys, it's been a great time tonight. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Gary, especially from the wee hours, and Mag, you've always been great as always. Have a great night, everybody. See you guys next week.